When you think about chemistry and manufacturing controls, how vital they are to the process of bringing a product onto the market efficiently and relevant to risk management and post-market surveillance as well. When you look at the field of cell and gene therapy, what are some of the challenges there and some of the areas that companies should be focused on from your perspective?
So my focus in this field and in vaccine development has been on CMC activities, which essentially means developing a process, developing the analytics to ascertain that the process and the product are good enough, and then scaling up that process to make a drug. And so essentially the responsibility of the CMC team is to produce a drug product that can go in the patient, that can help the patient. And so, like any other new modality, there are challenges, of course. Most of these projects or programs transition from academia to industry. An academic lab does the initial research to say, okay, this disease is caused by this particular gene, and correcting that mistake or that error can correct the disease, can help the patient. Then comes the monumental task of actually converting that into a drug development plan. And that can be fairly daunting on several fronts. I handle the CMC aspect of it. I'll give you a couple of examples. So drug product manufacturing, for example, is a CGMP process. So it needs to follow good manufacturing practices. CMC and manufacturing sites can be very expensive to establish and run. And so these GMP sites, startup companies struggle with the notion as to whether they should already build their own manufacturing site or they should outsource it. So that's one challenge. Because these therapies are new, the upfront cost and budget of CMC activities is also fairly high. And so to convince investors or convince the board that CMC activities are going to cost X amount of money can be an uphill task sometimes. And then, of course, one has to remember for some of these therapies, like if you take the example of cell therapy, we're actually putting a live drug into a patient, right? And so the patient prep can take several months. The manufacturing and dosing needs to be coordinated with each other very carefully. And so that can also be a CMC challenge. Analytical methods are a challenge. They are constantly evolving. We're getting better at it. But to be able to say this drug meets the purity and safety criteria that you set forth for a particular drug product needs good analytics. And whether to do that in-house or whether to outsource it is also a question. And then, of course, with new modalities come regulatory questions as well. So you need to balance that in terms of interactions with the regulatory agencies.
It's interesting.